All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. And we have an amazing guest here with us today, Melissa Merrill. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's so good to see you and hear from you today, and super excited to chat.
Yes, you guys, we were just chatting right before we started recording about how we had met like years ago and how both of us have just transformed and grown so much in our own respective arenas. And I'm like I said, so excited to like glean information and have everyone be able to listen in and tune in. I love these conversations because I feel like I just get to be really curious and I get to learn so much and then just pass it forward to everyone. So I'm so grateful for your time. But you guys, if you don't follow her, if you don't know who she is, she's actually a speaker. You are an author as well. You're a coach, you're a podcaster, you're a course creator. You're like doing all of these things. You're a professional organizer, correct? Did I miss
Yep.
any of your like titles?
No, I know. It's like a freaking
Everything.
laundry list at this point. I've been doing it for 10 years. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this year I'll write a book. This year I'll make a course. This year I'll start a YouTube channel. So it's been a slow burn, but yes, it's a long list.
I love it. I love it. So I mean, we can dive into so many different things, but what I would love is if you can give everyone, because I would really love to focus on productivity and organization and also decluttering and minimalism, because I think those are things that have really been important in my life. And I would love to like, gather any information you have additionally. But before we do that, I'd love if you can share your story. Like, how did you get into the world of organizing and then also business planning, coaching, speaking, all of those things?
Yeah. So I worked in HR for like 15 years. So I worked in human resources for corporate, like Fortune 100 companies. And I was making six figures by the time I was 28, and I had gotten my degree and followed all the rules, so to speak, of like go to school and get good grades, and get your good job after college and all the things. And I was 28 years old and I was still building my organizing business on the side. I kind of started it as a side hustle way back in 2011. And people didn't know what home organizers were at that time. Like we didn't have the home edit show and the Marie Kondo show and all of these trendy things. People were like, what do you do, huh? So it was kind of like a side hustle. I did that on nights and weekends. And then by the time I was 28, I was so burnt out working in HR and just being beaten to the corporate ground, so to speak, that I was like, what if I could do this full time? So I kind of started to think about it. Went full time in organizing in San Diego in 2018, hired a team, had 4 girls working with me in San Diego County for, like 100-mile radius. And we were crushing it for those 2 years, 2018, 2019. 2020 hit, obviously. And so that's where the pivot came to really get into authoring my book and starting my course and all those other things.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure with 2020 that really transformed a lot of your business, and it's cool that you were able to shift and pivot into. And obviously, I think your book is actually called like Pivoting with Purpose or Pivoting. So, I mean, what is your book exactly about?
Yeah, so it's the subtitle is The Hamster Wheel, the Rat Race, and Other Career Myths Holding You Back. But yes, it's called Pivoting with Purpose. It's on Amazon. It hit Amazon bestseller in like 12 categories on launch day, which was super cool. It beat out like Traction. I don't know if you read that book by Jim Wickman. Yeah. And Ray Dalio Principles for like a minute, but
it did do it. That's freaking awesome. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
So wow. It was basically just a whole bunch of stuff that was in my brain that I wanted to put into a book. And it's honestly really easy to self-publish a book, like on, through Amazon. And I was like, well, I have all of these notes and journals and G drives, and I'm just going to like kind of put it all together and hopefully it makes sense. And people loved it. So yeah.
Incredible. Okay. So I want to dive into like, first of all, like the decluttering and stuff, because I know that's not really like your main focus now, but I do want to talk about it. And even from a lens or perspective of like productivity within your business. Because a lot of people that listen to this, they're part of network marketing, or they're starting an online business, or they're stay-at-home moms, whatever it may be. So I want to talk about the importance, like energetically, of why we need to have like a clean, organized space. Because I know for me, it's like transformed when I have a clean space, it changes the way I work and it changes the way I produce. So can you like give some insight and talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So stuff has energy attached to it. Stuff has emotions attached to it, memories attached to it, whether that's digital clutter. I know that you did like a digital detox episode, and then you did
Yes.
the episode with the gal that, is a personal stylist and goes through the closets and stuff like that. So if you guys are listening to this, there's definitely a theme here where, there's a lot to this, but with organizing your stuff, you really are able to make room for new opportunities and new energy to come into your life. So when you feel like your space might be kind of weighing you down, it might be energetically not charged, right? Like that whole saying, your vibe attracts your tribe, and like all of those, kind of woo-woo statements that keep us all going. But it's true, because if you're in an energetic state that is low vibration, low level, and your surroundings are also low vibe and low level, then you're probably not going to be able to ascend and hit all of those goals that you want to do. So the physical clutter definitely relates to productivity, time management, being able to get stuff done. The name of my company is Make Shit Happen LLC,
Love
which is
that.
like a whole crazy thing with the Secretary of State that like they didn't want to let me name it that, but I named it that anyway. But so like getting stuff done, if you're in a lull, if you're in a rut, if you're in a plateau, if you're in a season of life, if you're in a pivot, right? If you're in a transformation, a transition period in your life, which we all go through those phases, organizing can help you feel like a new person a lot of times.
I love that. So with that, I like doing it like, decluttering like quarterly or like monthly a little bit. But for people who are really busy, like what are some areas they can tackle? What are some questions they can ask themselves when they're like, okay, I have an entire garage full of shit. And then I also have my bedroom and closet full of shit. And then I have, it's overwhelming. So how do you have people like take their entire home or their entire apartment and break it down and then ask questions? Because a lot of people are emotionally attached to their past stuff and their past self, where until we get rid of those old clothes that no longer identify with us, until we get rid of that old memorabilia that no longer resonates with us, we can't up level. So what are some of those like distinct questions people could ask themselves, places that they can start to really chunk through their home?
Yeah. So starting with the energetic side of it and kind of the vision setting side of it, the mindset side of it, because it starts there. It's not just about getting rid of stuff or donating stuff or putting stuff in a box and calling it a day or putting it in pretty bins from Target, right? A lot of times people think, oh, I'll just go to Target and I'll get a bunch of bins and I'll suddenly be magically organized. And that's not what it's about. It's actually an energetic shift that you have to commit to of making those lifestyle habit changes so that, if I come in as a professional organizer, I still organize here now that I'm in Oklahoma, doing a project in somebody's home, it's the worst feeling when you go back like maybe 3 months later and everything is just crazy again and chaotic again. So the whole point is to set up those systems for success. So starting with those mindset questions, what is the feeling I want when I walk through the front door of my home? Ask yourself that. Is it peace? Is it like it's your sanctuary, your nest, your serenity from the outside world? What is that feeling? Does the stuff in my home give me the life I want? Right? And really asking yourself these tough questions of, is it worth the real estate, not just in my home and the square footage, but also the real estate in my brain and in my energetic, being.
Yeah.
And then a few other questions. I've got a whole list.
I love it. Go through them. It's so good.
Am I somehow thinking I won't be happy by getting rid of stuff? So that's a big one, because we tend to kind of insulate ourselves with things when we're not feeling safe or secure or stable. Maybe we feel vulnerable, we feel exposed, embarrassed, humiliated, whatever's going on in our life. If we don't feel like we're enough, we'll often try to compensate with physical items to make us feel like we're enough.
Yes. Hoarding.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Or pack ratting, or even just, a collector, whether you're collecting makeup or nail polish or beauty products or whatever. Like, if you have all of these things, it's like, okay, but you're not actually using the other things that you have. Why are you buying this?
One, it's identifying the why. Why do you feel like you need more when you already have 3 concealers? Why do you need another one? Like you really don't. It goes so much deeper when you're in consumption. And like a tip I do that, I don't know if you recommend this, but like when I buy something like a shirt, I get rid of something else in my closet, and that makes sure that I'm like not consuming to consume, but consuming to like up level.
Yes. Ooh, I like that. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
one in, one out, right? So if you, like you said, if you have a bunch of PJ sets and you have 5 different sets and you can only fit 5 sets in your drawer, okay, well, which one has to go if this one's going to move in, right?
Right.
So following that one in, one out. And then the last thing too is like back to your point about like concealer, right? Well, are you living in the some days and what ifs? So are you like, I might need that someday, but you haven't actually looked at it in 5 years?
Like on Halloween for makeup one time a year, you don't need to keep it.
Yes. Yes. Or all those like holiday, like fake lashes or whatever, nail polishes, like what, and I know we're talking about beauty products, but this expands everywhere. Like in your kitchen, do you really need 2 can openers and 3 wine bottle openers and 5 freaking martini shakers when you only make a martini once a year or whatever? You know what I mean?
Totally. 100%. What is your advice to people who, I love these questions, by the way. What is your advice to people who have that really like memorabilia, nostalgia side of them? Like, how do you kind of help them disassociate the memory from the item? Or do you have any tricks for that?
Yeah, so there's a few things. So I'll go like 3 different places with this. One is moms with like kids stuff. So every piece of homework they've ever written on, every piece of artwork that they ever did in school, every coloring book that they ever colored in, it can be really sentimental. Like, oh my gosh, I want to cherish these memories. And like, it means so much, right? But a lot of times with my clients, we'll do like a memory box per year. So we'll say, you know, this is Melissa's memory box from kindergarten, and this is Sydney's memory box from first grade. And then you'll have like a few curated pieces that are in there, and it's contained and it's pretty, and that's it. And that's whatever gets in there is what gets to stay, right? The other thing you can do is like photo books. So you can take photos of the artwork and then just have like a cool stack of you know, hardbound photography books that are living in your house, which you're more likely to sit and look at or have company over and go through than just having a whole bunch of boxes in the garage that are collecting dust and cobwebs that you're not respecting anyway.
Right. I love that. I like that your philosophy isn't necessarily like, get rid of it at all costs. It's like, let's find a way to make it organized, and let's like find a way to structure it and have like a system for it. I really like that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And then like with parents, a lot of times, so it actually dates back to the Great Depression era, where there was really a theme of lack, right? Like people needed to keep every little piece of tinfoil or every little plastic bag or every little, you know, cup of butter or whatever, right? And then the baby boomers hit. And so the baby boomers are a little less hoardy than the Great Depressioners, because the Great Depressioners had to be. Baby boomers tend to be more like pack rats, but also a little bit hoardery. And then slowly, now that we're down in like Gen Z, we're seeing a lot more folks being a lot more minimalist, like, you know, more digital nomads, living out of a backpack, traveling, living in a tiny home, living in you know, a dorm room, living in a smaller space, right, where we don't have as much stuff, because most of our stuff that we do and that we consume now is digital, right? And so that's totally different than our parents. But one thing with, you know, older folks is they've experienced all the life things, right? They've had all the milestones. They might still have their wedding dress, their wedding bouquet, their wedding shoes, their you know, passed away, if they lost a child, if they lost a spouse, all of that can be really emotional. And my advice for those types of situations is the person has to be ready. The person has to like want to be able to release the things. You can't make somebody get rid of stuff. You like, you just can't. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make somebody become organized, you know? And so in those situations, I think it does take an expert a lot of times, somebody like a professional organizer, to come in and really help them go through those things. Sometimes it's a family thing. If you can have an estate sale, if you can have a family reunion, if you can kind of pass things on to other people. But the one thing you want to be careful about, and I don't know if your parents have done this, is like keeping all your old stuff, thinking that you'll want it someday. But you're like, I don't want my Beanie Babies. I don't want my Barbies. I don't want this stuff. Please get rid of it. And they don't listen. So it's kind
Yes, that is my mother in a nutshell. Mom, if you're listening, I love you. And she just texted me the other day and she's like, I can't wait till you have kids. You can have all the Barbie dolls. I'm like, oh God.
awesome.
It's so true. Okay, wait. So I totally pulled us off track. You were talking about the questions, and then how do you recommend people start going through their homes? Because again, even talking about all that, it's like, even going through parents' home, like there's so much stuff in people's houses.
Yeah. So it starts with a lifestyle shift, right? So you go through kind of these questions. It's about living life with less so that you can enjoy more. So knowing that at the end of the day, you're going to be able to invite those new opportunities, those job promotions, those next level ranks, whatever raises, all of those things in your life when you make room for it. If you're bogged down and if you're cluttered, those are the types of questions that help you walk through it. So then we talked a little bit about minimalism. We talked about the Great Depression. We talked about kind of how we got here. Now, I always recommend starting small once you're ready. So don't go to eat the big giant elephant of going through your divorced box of all your wedding stuff, right? Because clearly you're going to be shook by that.
That's a lot of energy.
Yeah. So let's start with like the spice cabinet, like what's in there that you could get rid of. What spices don't you use? What spices are all cakey and gross? 20 minutes spend in your, spice rack area, your vitamin area, your medicine cabinet. What can you get rid of that's non-emotional? Old Band-Aids that have lost their stickiness. Like start small and you'll really get that momentum to work up to those, bigger elephants, right? And one thing there is 20 minutes a day to keep the clutter at bay is what I say. It's like super cheesy, but it helps people because it's like 20 minutes. That's all you have to do.
Yes. No, that's so good. And it's so true. I was just thinking, I'm like, I could go through my spice rack and that would be like, I get a little bit done every single day. I have a strawberry timer. You like set the timer for 20 minutes. You just go after it. You hear the ticking. So you're like accountable. And that's like something that is so doable for anyone. And over the course of a month, you have probably your entire house pretty much knocked.
Yeah. Yep. And start with those non-emotional areas. It could be your car's glove box. It could be your laundry room. It could be under your bathroom sink. It could be, like start with these smaller areas and then work up to the closet, right? The closet can be full of a lot of emotion because we don't fit into sizes, or that was what I wore to so-and-so's graduation and it's sentimental. That's like a bigger elephant. Don't touch the closet first.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. It's a big day. It's a big day. So do you recommend like the whole everything has a home philosophy where like everything lives in a certain place? I've heard a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah. So kind of to my comment of like just going to Target and getting a bunch of bins isn't going to, magically make you organized. I think people do get caught up in like the Pinterest perfect pantries. They do get caught up in like the TV magic of shows like The Home Edit, right? Yeah. Where all of us organizers that watch the Home Edit show are like, this is so not realistic. This is so not a great depiction of the industry, like because it's TV magic. They're like lickety split. They're in there, they're out. There's no clients crying and screaming about getting rid of stuff, right? And yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be an organizer, but I think a little bit every day is gonna get you to where you need to be. Just like anything, I have one of these little timers too. I love that you have a strawberry timer.
Oh my God, yes, Amazon.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God. So let's talk about that, like the emotions that come along with it, because people, obviously someone could hire, a home organizer in their local area. But like, if you're by yourself and you're going, I like to always have a girlfriend with me when I'm cleaning out my closet, because they'll tell me if something looks like crap on me, right? But like, what are some tips with getting rid of things that you are emotional about? Like, what are some mindsets people can start to embody, some awareness they can bring? Because at the end of the day, your home is a representation of who you are internally, I believe. And if you keep it cluttered, your life is probably cluttered in so many areas. So what are some ways people can like just change that mindset around their space?
Yeah, I think understanding that what you're holding might be trying to fill some sort of emotional void is like a good place to start. And then kind of realizing, digging deeper into that. It's almost like therapy, right? A
Yeah.
lot of times as organizers, we're like therapists working with people, but
Yeah. Honestly, you are.
it's a lot, you know, it's a lot of like mental work and emotional work. And so I think when folks have that of like, I don't know where to start. It's too much. There's so much that I want to keep. How do I make this better? You can kind of get into that, like, okay, is this serving me type mentality, right? Like, am I living in the somedays? Am I holding on to this someday if my kid wants this, or someday if the person that gave this to me comes over and they see that it's not in my house? Like, that's another big thing, is guilt, like feeling guilty of, you know, my grandma passed away and I didn't see her in her last days, and so I have to keep everything she ever gave me because otherwise I'll, you know, piss off the gods or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, people have these stories, and it comes down to stories. It's like, what stories are you telling yourself? Because nobody's making you keep this stuff. Nobody's, you know, no lightning is going to strike upon you if you get rid of something. And that's where it comes down to, like, are you actually honoring the things that you're keeping because you say you care about them so much? A lot of times when I walk into a garage, or I call it like an avalanche closet, where you open it and just stuff just like fall, like a Monica closet, if you ever watched Friends.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, all the stuff just starts to fall out, and it's like, wait, but you're saying that you really loved your, I don't know, your grandpa's leather hunting supplies, and you really loved your grandma's old like glass Avon bottles, but they're literally covered in rat poop and dust and cobwebs, sitting in some garage like that you haven't looked at in 10 years. Okay, but then they don't mean anything to you. So why are you not honoring and respecting these things? Maybe pull out one of those Avon bottles, use it on your vanity, and that's what you get to keep. You know what I mean? So it's little compromises.
You know, and it's so true. It's like if you really care about something, you're valuing it, you're taking care of it, right? And even with like memorabilia, I have a bunch of pictures on my phone, because at one point I was like, I'm getting rid of everything, going totally minimal. And there were things that I actually threw away that I was sad I threw away, but I have all these pictures of all these cards and birthday, you know, all these things, and I'm like, even gifts. I took pictures of gifts that I was like, I need to get rid of this because I don't want it. But the gift wasn't the gift. The gift was for the person who was giving me the gift to be able to see my reaction, or to be able to give the gift. Right. So it's like, it has nothing to do with the actual physical item. They wouldn't want you to keep something you don't like anyways. So it's like really detaching from those things, keeping the memories in a picture album on your phone it suffices just as well. And so if you can really start to like do that kind of thing, it becomes easier to separate with those items and not like make a huge story about it. I love that. That's so good.
And taking photos, I think, again, is like it's a good way to look back on, whether it's children's artwork or it's whatever, you know. Our phones have enough storage, hopefully, at this point in time. Otherwise, get yourself a good Google Drive storage space. And that's where all my stuff lives too, is like, put it in the cloud, digitize it, get rid of the actual physical stuff.
Yes, that's so good. What are your thoughts on like minimalism? I know we touched on it briefly, but like I hear so many people talking about, you know, like put everything, you know, I listen to the minimalists and all that stuff, and they're like, put everything that you own in boxes, and then as you need them, take them out and keep only those things that you use for 30 days, get rid of everything else. Do you think there's a point of like going too far with minimalism?
I do.
Just like the other end of the spectrum with too much stuff?
I do. Yeah. I think first off, to each their own, like whatever serves you in your life, whether, I mean, if you have kids, you have stuff, right? If you are a single person, you probably don't have as much stuff, but we still have a lot of stuff, you know, in our lives, especially in work that you and I are doing. Like, we have to have a certain amount of different outfits to be on camera. We have to have a certain amount of different, I don't know, accessories, glasses, all of these things, right? So it depends. I'm not going to say there's a one size fits all solution for anybody. I don't, you know, there's all these different things. There's Swedish death cleaning, there's minimalism, there's the KonMari method, which is like the Marie Kondo stuff of like, you know, blessing your clothes and holding them. You probably don't get that vibe from me, because that is not my vibe at all. I'm like, we're coming in, this is boot camp, we're getting rid of some stuff, where are the trash bags? Like, I'm very like, no BS. And I think it's the same for each client. You know what I mean? Like every client's different. Every person that needs to get organized is different. And so, no, I am not a minimalist. I don't even think, I think they have like a documentary and a podcast and stuff. I've never even like, I don't like dig my toes into any of that
Yeah.
because I'm just like, it's not my jam. Like, I think for some people it's realistic, but for most of the population, we have stuff. And if you look, I was on a podcast, with my friend in Germany who's building a whole pro organizer community out there, which is totally
Amazing.
new out there. And she was like, your houses are literally 10 times the size of our houses in Germany. And so it's so true where we don't, we fill the space, right? Like you will fill, you've probably heard this in like productivity and time management.
Yes.
Like you'll fill the time. If you have 4 hours to do something, you know you're going to do it in 4 hours. But if you only had 2 hours to do that exact same thing, guess what? You're still going to get it done. You will fill the space. And so it's the same with our homes. If you're living in 1,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet, I've been in 10,000 square foot homes in San Diego, you know, you're going to fill the space. You're not going to just leave rooms empty. And so also keeping an eye on that, you know, do you want to downsize? Is it time to get a 1-bedroom apartment instead of the 2-bedroom? Things like that.
Right. That's so, so true. Yeah. I think it's Parkinson's law. It's not Pareto's principle, but Parkinson's law, like what, you know, however much time you even give yourself to clean out your house, you'll take it. So give yourself less time and you'll get it done faster. Right. It's the same with the physical space. And I think there's a lot of beauty in space too. Like when I have a room that's like really pristine and clean and organized, like there's space to breathe, there's space to create, there's space to, you know, have friends over and enjoy this. Like, it's just, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
Okay, this has been so helpful. I want to ask a couple more questions on like time management, goal setting, things like that, because I always love to hear people's strategies, and you're an expert in this as well, and you speak on this. So what are some, like, let's just say people are decluttering their house, they're like really like getting after it. What are some of like your top, because I think until you declutter your space, you can't really be as productive as possible. So what are some of like your top productivity, time management, goal setting tips that you could give to people who are finally feeling like their physical space is cleaner, more energy available? What are those tips?
Yeah. So you mentioned briefly Pareto principle. So Vilfredo Pareto was basically an Italian engineer in like the early 1900s. And he states that for most outcomes, roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of the causes. So this is the 80-20 rule, right? So 20% of your actions produce 80% of your results. And so I'll use this in like business terms, because most of the people listening to this probably working on building some sort of business. And that being said, not every single little thing you do every day is going to give you the results that you want. You've got to figure out what to double down on, right? It might be, like I tell my girls in Pro Organizer Bootcamp, it might be Instagram for you. It might be Facebook for you. It might be Nextdoor for you. It might be Google My Business for you. It might be your website for you. It might be email marketing for you, right? Everything is different for each person, and you're going to match the energy of what you're excited about. So if you're excited more about TikTok than about Instagram, then fine, go all in on TikTok. If you're more excited about launching a podcast than you are about starting a YouTube channel, then great, go do whatever lights you up. And those are the things that are really going to give you that momentum to produce more of those results. So not every little thing is going to work at the beginning. If you're just getting started, you're probably kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, like I like to say, because it's just kind of, I don't know what's going to stick. And once you figure out what's going to stick, those are the needle movers to go hard on.
That's so good. Yeah. It's like following your bliss, right? Like what lights you up? What do you enjoy doing? And, you know, for you, it might come in writing, it might come in podcasting, it might come in Instagram, it might come in TikTok. I go on TikTok and I'm like, I can't dance. Like I
hate it.
I can't do it. And it doesn't make me feel good. So like, I'm not going to put my focus there. But once you find the 2 or 3 things that are needle movers, you put 100% of the focus in there, or 20% of the focus, or 80-20, 80% of the focus.
Yeah.
That's such good advice.
And I know that you talk, you know, with your teams and everything about goal setting. Obviously, it's a huge, you know, piece of the business, if not like the whole business, but goal setting and hitting new goals. So most of you listening have probably heard of SMART goals. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, and or realistic and time bound. There's kind of some different variations there. But I always like to have the folks in my programs set SMARTer goals. So what does the ER stand for? It stands for evaluate and readjust. So if you think of New Year's resolutions, what's the top New Year's resolution?
Weight loss or make more money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Usually weight loss, right? And so New Year's comes around, I come to you and I'm like, hey, Sid, I want to lose weight. Okay, well, cool. Does that sound like a smart goal? No, not at all. But if I come to you and I'm like, look, I am going to join the gym down the street, work with a personal trainer 3 times a week. I'm going to download, my MyFitnessPal app, and I'm going to track all of my macros and my calories. I'm going to weigh myself once a week, and I'm going to lose 30 pounds by April 1st. That sounds way freaking more smart than I just want to lose weight, right? And so the ER comes in where, say it's like mid-February and I'm like, damn it, Sid, I've only lost 5 pounds out of those 30 pounds. Am I going to just like go back to eating Cheez-Its and watching Netflix every night and not going to the gym? No, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm going to evaluate and I'm going to readjust. I'm going to say, you know what, that might have been too big of a goal for this season of my life. I'm going to knock that down to, I want to lose 15 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. And that keeps you going where at least you're not just like, fully stopping, full stop. Okay, I'm done. It keeps that momentum going.
That's good. And it allows you not to shame yourself for not hitting a goal on target. Cause sometimes there's other factors involved beyond what we can, do or control. So I love that. I love that. Also, don't use it as an out to like not achieve the goal.
Yes, exactly. Like stay the course, but keep going. The last thing I want to say is, so the Pomodoro technique is another kind of one of these things that I talk about in my keynotes and workshops and stuff. We talked a little bit about our little timers that we have. And like you said, set a timer, get the task done. So you kind of hinted at this. Pomodoro technique is basically a time management method that was developed by Francesco Cirillo in the 1980s. And he used a tomato timer, which is why it's called the Pomodoro technique, because Pomodoro is tomato. So you have a strawberry, I have this little yellow man, and then he has a tomato. But basically it's the idea that you can get more done, kind of filling the space, right? You can get more done in short bursts of time. So think of the things that you don't like doing in your business, or think of the things that you don't like doing at work or in life, right? Maybe it's cleaning your house. Set the damn timer for 20 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever it is. And then separate those throughout the day by short breaks. So break up your day with music, with podcasts, with going and, loving on your fur babies, going and hanging out with your kids, taking a walk outside, going and reading, a couple chapters in a book, right? Give yourself those little reward points throughout your day to keep you going and keep you productive.
That's so good. And, it's so funny. Right before this Zoom, my girlfriend's staying with me, and she's in town from California, and we did our laundry this morning, and it was in the dryer, and it was 8 minutes till this call. And she was like, we'll just do the laundry afterwards. And I was like, no, like, let's do it right now. Let's get it done before we do this call. It was like 8 minutes and there's 2 of us who can get it done. Like, let's gamify it. And she said, like, why put off today, or why put off, like what you can do today for tomorrow or something like that. And she said it so beautifully. And I was like, exactly. Like when you can just take a little task that you've had on your to-do list and just knock it out right now, set your timer and get it done, you will feel so much more like confident. Your body will be in action. You're going to feel good. And it's just getting those little things done, I think, and fitting them and squeezing them in the pockets of your day makes you realize how much time you really have.
Yes. Yes. And that's such a myth where people will come to you or to me or to whoever and complain, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to do that.
I can't with the, I don't have enough time. I'm like, you're scrolling on TikTok for 45 minutes, like 4 times a day. You have time.
Right. And let's talk about that really quick too. So I have some statistics. So self-interruptions throughout your workday are responsible for about 44% of all interruptions at work. So it's not, you're not blaming it on the news, the world, the kids, the dog, the whatever, the climate was wrong, your water heater broke, like all of these excuses that we make, right? Working from home or whatever. I think a lot of times it is coming from our phone, right? Notifications. I'm a big fan of turning notifications
I have all of them off. It's the best thing ever.
Yep. Change your settings, change your life. That's what I always tell people in my workshops, because the amount of task irrelevant thoughts that come out of all of those pings and dings from our phone. So imagine, you and I are sitting down and trying to have a meeting, and I keep going and looking at my phone. Well, guess what? I'm completely not present with you. I'm not paying attention to you. It's rude. And not only that, but I'm also half-assing my attention to whatever is coming in. So if I'm trying to write somebody back on Facebook Messenger and do an Instagram comment back on somebody that liked my post and talk to you and read my email on my computer, like, no, that none of that's going to be doing well. Right. So it's damaged task performance.
It's also like two things. It takes 15 minutes to refocus once you divert your attention. So the second I look at my phone, if I'm on a podcast with you, it'll literally take me 15 minutes to get back completely present with you. And so for me, it's like, do one thing at a time. It's also, like you said, it's actually showing the person you're talking to that you're not important enough for me to focus on just you. That is what you're like when you're not focused. So it's like, be present with the people you're around, and it'll just, you having your phone aside and you not checking it, even if it does ding, is going to actually build your relationships as well, I believe. And that's just as important.
Yes, especially in the industry that you're in, of course.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, got to build those strong relationships.
And it's taking control of your time. Like you said, like, turn off your notifications, and then you won't even, you're in control. You're not reactive, you're proactive.
Yep.
And that's something that's transformed my life. I love that.
Yep.
Do you have anything else that you want to touch on that we haven't touched on? I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I want to respect your time.
I think, I mean, I have like 1,000 other statistics.
Of course.
With the phone thing, like, I know a lot of people listening to this probably mostly run their business from their phone, but do keep an eye on your weekly screen time reports. iPhone has this, Android has this. On your cell phone, you might be shocked as to where you're actually spending all that precious time that you're saying you don't have, right? Like you said, are you scrolling TikTok? Are you, the average person checks their email inbox about 30 times every hour. If you're an office worker, right? So say you're like working an office job and you sit there and you just refresh your email 30 times an hour. And the average person,
insane.
Yeah, nuts. And the average person will pick up their phone more than 1,500 times per week. So be mindful of, if you are going to be on the phone, is it targeted? Is it there to do business and get stuff done and get in and get out? Is it like, I do these like Instagram blitzes where I'll go and I'll like 20 posts and I'll make 10 comments and I'll respond to all my DMs and then I'll put the friggin' phone down, because I don't want to be sucked into reels for 2 hours and lose my day.
It's so true. And I did that episode. You guys can go back on digital minimalism. And during that time, I downloaded an app called Offscreen, and it would tell you how many times you picked up your phone, and it would set, like, let you set a limit for it. And it also would tell you how long you were on your phone for. And it was like the attention span. I mean, there were times in a day where I would pick it up hundreds and hundreds of times, even when I was in my digital detox, and the average time was like 12 seconds. I'm like, it is sucking us dry. Speaking of, I have an alarm going off right now, but it's crazy how much time we're wasting on our phones. I think my screen time before that digital detox was like 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I'm working just like you are on your phone, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And what are you missing out there in the real world?
Everything. That is life out there. It's life. Wow. Okay. This has been so good. So I want to share with everyone, you can come back anytime. I would love to dive in more with you about so many different things, speaking, like business planning, everything. Recruiting would be great too. But if you can share where people can find you, how they can see all your stuff, because you have amazing content on social and so much of it.
Thank you. Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm at Pro Organizer Bootcamp. And then I'm also at Let's Get You Organized OKC for my actual home side of my business. And then my website is proorganizerbootcamp.com. I also have Let's Get You Organized OKC.com. And I have melissamerrill.com, which is where, if you are listening to this and you're like, I want some time management hacks, I want some productivity tips, there's all kinds of stuff in there, an 80-20 worksheet, a SWOT analysis worksheet, all kinds of freebies. Not going to try to sell you anything. It's just like a bunch of free resources. If you listen to this and you like it, you can go to melissamerrill.com.
Fabulous. Melissa, thank you so much for your time. This was so much value. I feel like I learned so much, and I just got like hot and excited about talking about organization because it's just like my love language. So I'm so glad we finally got to do this. I'm so grateful for you.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye guys.